So this is part two of a three-part series. I'll cut to the chase because I did a proper intro in yesterday's video. If you want to go back and watch the Man of Steel re-review that I did yesterday, you can check that out for a bit more context. But in this one, I'm going to be talking about Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Having not watched this film for a few years, going back and revisiting the Snyderverse, and having not seen any version of Justice League. So I was kind of leading up to that so I could talk about all three and see if I can enjoy these movies for what they are. So like I say, it was a review introduction yesterday at the beginning of yesterday's video, so I'll just cut into it now. We'll talk about Batman v Superman, having recently rewatched it. Very quick 10-second promo and affiliated link for you with a discount code Tactical Soap. We've got Maverick, Bond and Durden. Check out the video description for a link and a discount code. Hello and welcome to Brand X Reviews. So if you've seen the previous video, I was talking about Man of Steel. Now I was doing this in a context of I'm revisiting this franchise because basically what happened in a nutshell, I was a big fan of what I saw coming out of the DC cinematic universe in the early days of it. The concepts sounded very good. Man of Steel, I enjoyed in isolation. Then Batman v Superman came out and I was a bit disappointed. I thought Suicide Squad could redeem the franchise anyway, but that was even worse in my opinion. And then the Wonder Woman movie, which I thought was okay, but then obviously when the Justice League, the original theatrical cut of that movie came out in 2017, and I heard everything that was coming out from that, I sacked it off. I said, no, I'm done with this universe. I've had enough stinkers so far. Justice League, if they mess that one up, it's irreparable to me at this point. So obviously that was 5 years ago nearly, and I haven't watched anything that's come out since. I haven't been interested at all. But then in hindsight, obviously last year we had the Zack Snyder cut, and I was hearing a lot of good things about it as well. Very positive. Nothing amazing, but yeah, give it a watch. It's worth it. But it is 4 hours long. And obviously you've got the concept of the Snyderverse. A lot of people have different interpretations on what that is. Does it include Wonder Woman? Doesn't it include that? From a marketing point of view, they re-released the Zack Snyder directed movies, the three of those, in a 4K box set. So to me, I was happy enough with that because, like I said, I wasn't a huge fan of Wonder Woman. I wouldn't particularly rush to re-watch it, but I was obviously, I thought it was a pretty good film, but the character I'm a huge fan of. I could live without that film, let's just put it that way. So I thought I'd go back and revisit the movies Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, give them a watch, and then watch the Zack Snyder cut as well. So this video series, obviously, in the last video I talked about rewatching Man of Steel because I liked that in isolation originally, but I've not watched it in 5 years. I talked about that in the last video. This video, I watched, well, I'm going to talk about the fact that I watched the Batman v Superman movie, and what are my thoughts on that? Obviously 6 years now after it came out, because I did do a review of it at the time and it wasn't a glowing review, and my thoughts haven't hugely changed much since, but a few things have changed. Obviously that was the theatrical cut that I was reviewing back in the day. Obviously we do have the Ultimate Edition that came out a few months later on for the home video release. It does make it a longer film, unfortunately, and with that comes a lot of improvements. So obviously it fleshes things out. You kind of get a bit more character development, that kind of thing, a bit more story development as well. Things tend to just make a bit more sense. But it is a 3-hour film. Now, like I said, I'd sacked it off. I didn't really think I'd ever watch that film again, to be honest. But obviously I've kind of revised my opinion on well, my approach to that anyway. And trying to enjoy it, because like I said, I wanted to enjoy these movies. I got called out quite a few times for being anti-DC, which isn't really true. Like I say, I was always the bigger fan of DC stuff, but it was just for a few years there, you had the Marvel movies kind of really doing, knocking it out of the park, whereas you couldn't say the same. But I couldn't say the same for DC. In fact, it was a bit embarrassing. So from a context point of view, obviously, we had a different cut of the movie, but giving it a few years to pass, and obviously, I think another thing was that this movie franchise, entry to entry, no matter how good they are or bad they are, well, no matter how good they are, let's put it that way, for the point I'm making, they were tainted by all the bad stuff. So you're not getting like one movie really, you're getting a series of movies. Like if you're watching a TV series, you wouldn't say, I'm a fan of like The Sopranos, for example, but it's just one episode of The Sopranos I like, the rest of it was crap. But I do like the series, but it's just one episode. It doesn't really work that way. You just wouldn't watch that episode, really. You'd be like, yeah, whatever. So with these movies, obviously not the exact same analogy, but I think when you've got a lot of the entries, especially when you've got the majority of the entries that are bad outnumbering the good ones, it's like I say, it doesn't make you want to watch the good ones. You just kind of sack the whole thing off. But I think in its saving grace, the DC universe does seem like it doesn't seem to tie together one entry to the next. It's not that connected a universe. I found just aesthetically alone, Suicide Squad just did not feel like the same universe as the previous two movies, Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. So you can just basically say, well, it's each director's vision, really, and you've got this kind of self-contained trilogy with the Zack Snyder trilogy. Granted, obviously, it does reference other stuff that is in other movies either otherwise excluding, like Wonder Woman, but you can just look at it as its own thing. So from that contextual point of view, going into it, revisiting it from that, I kind of enjoyed Batman v Superman this time round, thinking, right, forget about all the other stuff. Just judge this movie on its own merits, and obviously it connects to two other movies, one of which I definitely like, Man of Steel, and hopefully Justice League. When I watch that, I will enjoy that as well. So if you can just look at it as a trilogy and nothing more, the tainted factor doesn't really come into play as much. So that was something. Obviously, another issue from a historical point of view. I think part of the problem with Batman v Superman was the fact that it came out kind of in competition with Captain America Civil War, and it was night and day different. Not just one was bright and one was dark. I don't mean that. I mean one was good, one was like very good. The other was dubiously entertaining. Like, yeah, you can say it's entertaining, but I maybe question that. So I mean, obviously, that's a very subjective thing to say, but when everybody kind of feels the same way, I think, I think there is an argument to be made there legitimately. But yeah, I think that was one of the mistakes. And like my co-review, The Core, always said, and always continues to say about this, that Captain America zigged where Batman v Superman zagged. You know, those movies. And like I say, Captain America kind of got it right. Obviously, just little things. Let's be specific. So you've got Captain America versus Iron Man, and the premise of that movie is that they're against each other. There is a reason those guys are fighting against each other. There's like a real bit of sort of emotional turmoil that's going on between those two characters. There's a lot of conflict. They want to fight. They've got an enemy that they want to fight, and they want to stand side by side, but they can't do that because they've got this unresolved conflict that is just really deeply rooted. If you know what I mean, obviously, if you've seen the film, you'll know what I mean. Batman v Superman, it was a contrived battle. The concept of Batman versus Superman, in the way it plays out in the film, is very contrived. You basically had got them kind of being told, kind of blackmailed into fighting each other, and kind of misunderstanding each other. An argument can be made that it kind of makes sense, but I don't know. It doesn't seem to be as solid a character motivation from either Batman's point of view or Superman's point of view for them to be fighting each other as you got with the Marvel equivalent, Captain America Civil War. So I think that the movie having come out around the same time as that was a mistake in hindsight, given that they weren't making as good of a film. Obviously, they didn't know that in advance, but there you go. A few other things as well. What the hell was with Jesse Eisenberg? I mean, I quite like Jesse Eisenberg in other things that I've seen him in. He was very good in The Social Network, and also Zombieland as well. And what was the other one? The magic one. I forgot what it's called. Now You See Me. That was it. One and Two. He was pretty good in those films. So to see him as Lex Luthor, to know that was what they were doing, I was very optimistic. But then when he comes in and he's like this squirrely and like socially awkward. I know Jesse Eisenberg tends to do that a lot anyway, but I was hoping that he wasn't just going to do that. But it was like really like dialed up. It just didn't really seem like any Lex Luthor character that I was familiar with, which is fine. But he was really annoying in that. Not just, and I don't fault the actor for that. I mean, it was the way he was presented. Even like his music that plays, a theme that comes on when he's on, was just kind of silly. and it didn't really work because that wasn't. You could have a character like that in a Marvel movie, it might work a bit better, but it just didn't work in this. It was just weird, and it wasn't even. It didn't seem to me like it was actually Lex Luthor. They were kind of even saying, "Look, this isn't Lex Luthor. This is his son, and he's also got the same name." Because we know this isn't really a good iteration of the character, so we've got a bit of a Get Out like catch there. It's not actually him; it's his son. But yeah, some weird ass direction that they went with, and same with Jimmy Olsen as well, turning him into a throwaway character that gets killed off at the beginning of the film. It was a bit of an up yours to the source material, in a lot of ways. So little things like that, like I said, I didn't like. But on a positive note, having rewatched it, I enjoyed it probably this time around more than I have done on any other sitting before. Because like I said, I've got a new set of eyes to view this through, as given that it's a self-contained trilogy. It's a middle act of a three-part thing. I'm optimistic about the Justice League movie, so I'm going off the assumption that this is a tick, a thumbs up for each movie, for each of the three movies. Then I can kind of stand this movie being maybe not quite as good if Justice League is something I'll enjoy. So not much else to say really. Like I said, I did review this movie back in the day and I had quite a few valid points to say about it. So what I might do is I might put a little playlist together when I put these videos out there, so you can go back and rewatch those older videos. But yeah, those are my thoughts anyway on this movie. Like I say, it was a missed opportunity. I said that about a lot of films. I said the same about the Joker movie as well. It just seems like Warner Brothers and DC don't really seem to have a good grasp on how to make these movies good. They don't have to do copies and clones of what Marvel did. In fact, on the contrary, I think that they really could kind of fill in some of the voids that Marvel haven't gone there. Obviously, make it darker and so on. Maybe do something a bit more R-rated. They did that with the Joker movie, which, I mean, I didn't particularly like that movie, but at least they did it and it was successful. So it can be done. There's a lot that DC and Warner Brothers can work with, but it doesn't seem like they have been knocking it out of the park. It's quite rare that they've done anything that was really good. Although I did like the Batman movie that came out this year. But obviously, separate movie universe. Anyway, so I'm going to leave it there. The next video I'm going to talk about Justice League. By the time obviously that video's up, I will have seen the film, obviously, because I will be talking about it. But as I say, I'm optimistic. I might even get the core into part of that video as well, or even do like a fourth video in this entry. I don't know, but he has some stuff to say about it, so I'm going to bring him in on this as well. Right, so bit of a channel update anyway. I don't know if I might have mentioned this on a previous video, but brandxreviews.com is now back. I sacked that website address off a few years ago, but I bought it back again. It is a redirect to another website where I do get into more culture war stuff, but there's a lot of culture war in entertainment news on there. And there's a few other things as well, like relevant things, which to say it's a review website, I think it kind of gels well with the website that it links into. So you can check that out anyway. Affiliated links, obviously, I mentioned at the beginning of the video. Tactical Soap, you can check those out. There's a discount code in the video description. And for now, I will just leave it there. You can like and subscribe. You can like the video, subscribe to the channel if you feel that's something you want to do. But for now, I will leave it there and say thank you very much for watching.